right, let's go. Hello, everyone. It's episode 3 of the WebCast 2.0. The WebCast has returned. I'm your host, Mike Wobschall, Wobby, no longer with the Vikings, but still here to talk Vikings with you. And I have a couple of partners to do so. It's Giles, it's Chase. They'll be along for the ride every single episode of the WebCast 2.0. We are excited to continue the conversation with all of you and follow along as the Vikings unveil the 2022 regular season, and they will do so in style against the Green Bay Packers. Episode 3 is jam-packed full of preview content as the Vikings get set to host the Green Bay Packers. We'll preview that matchup right away, right out of the gates here in episode 3 of the WebCast 2.0. But also in this episode, we'll get into some NFC North and Vikings predictions. We'll quickly preview the AFC North. We did the NFC preview in episode 2 of the WebCast 2.0. So we'll do the AFC quickly. And then we'll talk about a little gambling in the final segment. So if you have a little bit of a gambling interest, please stay tuned for segment 4 of today's episode. We'll unveil a couple of lines that we like and then a couple of angles that we're going to follow all season long on the WebCast 2.0. Let's begin things, though, by saying hello to Giles and Chase and talking Vikings Packers. Hey, guys, how's it going?
Doing well. Let's talk some cheesehead content.
No better way. Yeah, no better way really to start a season, I don't think, than Vikings Packers. We get it every, 4 or 5 years, it seems. It's a really good way to do it. You want to save some of those juicy matchups for later in the year when your team hopefully is playing its best and clicking on all cylinders, but no better way to start it than with your arch rival. And for the Vikings, that is the Packers. Arch rival number 1, Green Bay Packers. So it's Vikings Packers. It's the game of the week on Fox, guys. The Vikings and Packers catch Fox's number 1 crew in this game, which a little bit more on that later, by the way, is not Joe Buck and Troy Aikman anymore. It's Kevin Burkhardt, who's play-by-play. Greg Olson is doing the analysis. So kind of an interesting change there for Fox. We'll see how those guys do. Anyway, 3:25 is kickoff. Vikings Packers on Fox. Packers 1.5 point favorites, -125 on the money line. The over-under for the game is 48.5. So I have some matchups to watch, guys. I have a prediction on how the pace of the game is going to play out. And then let's talk about the importance of this game for both teams. But first of all, Vikings Packers week 1 of this season. Your thoughts from a general standpoint as you previewed this game for the WebCast 2.0.
Yeah, 100%. I think this is a really important game because there are tremendous expectations surrounding this team. And right now, no one has tape on Kevin O'Connell. What is he going to do? How is he going to tackle things? You can make an argument that you can follow the Rams playbook and that's what's going to happen. But I think Kevin O'Connell seems smart enough to understand where he needs to put wrinkles and where he can't. But the point is, I don't think people really know how he's going to play the game. So I think we're going to come out of the gates storming. Okay. And honestly, I think we're going to do pretty well. But I mean, I think that'll be the biggest storyline is like, what do we take away from from Kevin? And I think if we do falter, I think the same thing will get spread throughout the season where I think this will set the trend for what people feel about the Minnesota Vikings.
I think you're totally right about that, Giles. And you've hit on some things that we've talked about in episode 1 and 2 of the WebCast 2.0. Is the Kevin O'Connell regime, so to speak, and its impact on how Kirk Cousins plays relative to the impact Coach Zimmer had on the way Kirk Cousins played. So lots of discussion about that in episode 1 and 2 of the WebCast 2.0. We encourage people to go back and listen to those episodes for more on that dynamic. It's certainly an important one, but we're not going to drill down on it right here today in episode 3 because we've done so already in episode 1 and 2. But you do mention the Vikings offense first, Giles. So let me skip ahead. My number 1 matchup is something else, and we'll get to that second. But since you mentioned the Vikings offense and you expect them to come out gangbusters right out of the gates, I will agree with you on that if they're on the right side of matchup number 2 to watch in this game, which is the Vikings rushing attack against the Packers defense. Yep. And to me, if Dalvin Cook and Alexander Mattison are ripping off even 3.5 or 4 yards per carry, I think Green Bay is in a world of hurt here. And this is not a novel concept. Oh, really? If you don't stop the run, you're going to give up a lot of points. But it's just not that simple. To me, Green Bay's chance of winning this game starts with it becoming Cousins versus Rodgers. If it's Cousins and crew, Cousins and Cook, Cousins and Madison versus Rodgers, it's too much, I think, for Green Bay. So if Cook and Madison are going here in week 1 against the Packers, I think it's the Purples game.
100%. And I think that's where a lot of people misidentify even the Rams' default offense. They look at it as this gangbusters. They throw a million times a game, and it's a very pass-heavy offense. And although it is a pass-heavy offense, it's based in the run. Now, that's not necessarily meant to be confused with a Kubiak-style offense, but they run duo, which is one of their play styles off of base. And I think that will be tough for the Packers to contend with because there's so many different adaptations that run off of duo that I think this is going to be a really scary combination.
Yep. All right. Number 1 matchup for me in this game, switching gears, flipping the ball, giving it to the Packers, Vikings on defense, guys, is the Packers offensive tackles against the Vikings edge defenders. This is the Vikings licking their chops and Green Bay buckling up and trying to hold on because it's I don't think it's going to be Bakhtiari and Jenkins, right? Nope. Okay, so both to me, the guys, if you fast forward in your brain the season and Green Bay wins the division, they're in the playoffs, like their offensive tackles are Bakhtiari and Jenkins and they're playing. Well, that's not what's happening here in week 1.
No.
So this is where the Vikings can ruin the game. And this is actually where the Vikings have to take advantage of a matchup. And if they don't, I think they're in big trouble.
Yeah, 100%. I think that was even pretty widely displayed at training camp when we were doing joint practices with the 49ers. I think it's no secret that Trent Williams is one of the best, if not the best, left tackles in the entire game. And Zadarius Smith had his way with him and a lot of different snaps. And that was just during practice. So I think if you're able to put a more of an inferior lineman in front of Zadarius and Danielle Hunter for that matter, I think they're going to make hay.
Yep. Agreed. All right. Number 3, one I'm really excited to watch during the game, but then going back to watch it on tape will be, I presume they will travel Jair Alexander to play Justin Jefferson.
Yep.
Would you? Okay.
Yep. Yeah. So, he's going to shadow almost certainly.
I cannot wait to watch that.
Yep. Especially with the oomph that Justin Jefferson has had this offseason. He demands being number 1 of himself, which he's one of those guys in the NFL that I actually see him backing that up. I view like Jalen Ramsey as another one of those personalities that like talks smack but has the ability to back it up. And Justin Jefferson is the top of that list, in my opinion.
Yep. So, I mean, and these guys are both, I won't say Jefferson's at the prime of his career yet. I think he's still an ascending player, but I'd say Jair is probably there. So we're seeing like 2 guys who are absolutely clicking on all cylinders right now, and they're going to go at it. Can't wait to watch that.
Yeah.
All right. So those are the 3 matchups for me that are vital. Is the Packers offensive tackles against the Vikings edge defenders. Can the Vikings run the ball? That's number 2. And then number 3 is Jair against Justin. Can't wait to see it. Yep. Pace of the game, to me, what I'm foreseeing is a little bit different than what you alluded to, Giles.
Okay.
To me, it's going to be touch and go early, feeling each other out. And I actually think both teams, as much as these teams are going to pass the ball this season, I think passing attempts is going to be sky high for Cousins and Rodgers when all is said and done. But I think they're going to try to go through the ground here in week 1 against each other as they're feeling each other out.
Okay.
I think the Vikings want to do that because they don't want this to be a shootout Cousins versus Rodgers. They want it to be Cousins and the crew against Rodgers. I think Green Bay is going to do this because they should be afraid of Zadarius Smith and Danielle Hunter. So I don't think they're going to put Rodgers on 5 and 7 step drops right out of the gates. So I see a lot of runs early. I see the clock moving. I see some punts. I see possessions that go 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 plays and end in field goals. If Rodgers is protected well, then I think Green Bay opens it up and now it becomes a high scoring game. If Rodgers is not protected, I think Green Bay goes into this mode that the Vikings were in like 2016, 17, and 18, where you're just trying to shorten the game all the time with a good defense and a good running game. That's what Green Bay will do if they can't protect Rodgers. If Cook in the run game is productive for the Vikings, this game turns into a shootout and Green Bay is in big trouble.
Period. Yeah, they don't have the ability to, or they don't have the receivers to be able to match that. Period.
I don't think so. At least not yet. And they might develop that over the course of the season. But if this is a game that's in the 60s, I don't think that's great for Green Bay if the Vikings are getting there because of the running game. So we'll see how it unfolds. You hit the nail on the head, Giles, with the importance of the game to both teams. To me, for Green Bay, it's 1 of 16. Maybe it's like 1.5, like, because it's still the Vikings and it's week 1.
Yep.
But we've seen this team lose a game in week 1, get killed in the Packers, and come back and have a great season. Look, they host the Bears next week on Sunday Night Football. So that's their arch rival. So I don't think they're going to get too worked up about this game, win or lose. I think the Vikings will almost feel like they won a playoff game if they win this game. It's a big deal for them, and a loss in this game puts their back against the wall as they go to Philly in week 2 on Monday night.
I completely agree. I mean, this is over amplifying it, but I think it'll feel like a Super Bowl loss if we lose this game because of the expectations that I mentioned before. If we lose, I think a lot of people will question the entire off-season construct of how we built this team. Like, did we make the right decisions? We didn't even win this first game. I think people will potentially blow it out of proportion. So I think it's very, very important that we get a W here for a variety of reasons.
What you mean on Monday things will get blown out of proportion in the NFL? No way. That would never happen. All right. Let's go to our predictions. NFC North standings and some Viking specific predictions. Let me run through for you guys where I see it finishing, and then I'll sort of turn it over to you guys and let me know where you see it differently. I'm going to go the Packers and Vikings with 11 wins each. They finished the season with the same record. The Bears will be in the cellar at 6, and I'll put the Lions in the middle with 9 wins. I think I'm a little high on the Lions at 9. It could be 8.
I'll give you that.
And I think I'm probably a bit too optimistic on the Bears. I actually think they're one of the worst teams in the NFL, and I think they'll be in the running for the top pick in the draft. So to me, 6 is like their absolute ceiling, probably more like 4 or 5. So that's how I see it going. I see Vikings and Packers neck and neck. And I just see Green Bay winning in some sort of tiebreaker and winning the division. So that's how I see the division unfolding. Before I take it a step further and going to the playoffs, am I in the ballpark with you guys, or are you going to rubber stamp the Vikings as division winners? Is this the year that it gets overturned?
Nope. I think you're spot on. Although I might see the Vikings winning, it will definitely be close. I think the Packers are too good for themselves just to completely train wreck. But with that being said, I do view the Vikings emerging victorious, but I think it'll be close. I think it'll come down to the last few games of the season.
Chase, Vikings, Packers head to head.
I'm giving it to the Packers. I've been watching them for about 10 years now, and every time I've doubted Aaron Rodgers, and every time he's proved me wrong. I don't even want to refer to them as the Packers anymore. I just want to say Aaron Rodgers, he can make a Walmart cashier, a Pro Bowl wide receiver. So, I think Aaron Rodgers is incredible. I think they're going to win the division, and you know what? There's wild card. That's okay.
Yep.
That's kind of how I see it unfolding too. So let's go next level here and get into the playoffs, where I think the Vikings and Packers will both be. I see the Packers as the 2 seed. I think the Vikings will get the 5 seed. If there's some sort of small variation there, and it's Green Bay and the Vikings in the first round of the playoffs, I think it'll end there for the Vikings. But if the Vikings get some other team in the playoffs in the first round, I think they're going to win a playoff game this year, probably in the wild card round, and then we'll see where they're at in the divisional round. That's my expectation.
Yep.
I think their ceiling is higher than that. Their floor obviously is sort of what it was last year. I don't think it'll get any worse than that. No. But their ceiling is winning the division and having home field. I mean, it's a roster that could do that. To me. I think there's enough holes in Tampa Bay. I think it's close enough with the Vikings, and I think Super Bowl hangover can be there for the Rams, that the ceiling for the Vikings is to do that. I don't think they will. But I think they'll win a playoff game this year.
Boom. Yeah, honestly, when you contrast the 2021 Vikings both on offense and defense, I think you're absolutely correct. We have the positional units to be able to go further than we do, and maybe win a couple playoff games, maybe get to the NFC Championship game, where I fully expect the Vikings to be top 5 in scoring, because the last few seasons we have not had an equal commensurate yards and scoring type offense. Like, for example, in 2020, I believe we were 4th in yards, but 11th in points, where we were able to move the ball pretty effectively, especially on the ground. But when it came to scoring in the red zone, we couldn't make it happen when the team or the other team knew that we were going to try to pass the ball, right? So
Yeah.
I think you're going to see a much more even-keeled metric between those two, and I'm expecting for that to be top 5. And I think, honestly, last year before Danielle Hunter got hurt, we were number 1 in pressure rate on defense, number 1 in sack. Like, we were doing very, very well, and that was without Zadarius Smith. So if you bring both of those people together, I expect our defense to make hay. The part that they obviously need to improve is on the 2-minute stretches. We gave up an historic amount of points and yards, for that matter, during those times. So I think that'll get cleaned up. And I think we're at least average when it comes to the defense across yards and points. But I do think they could crack the top 10 if they luck into it right.
Yep. To close the loop here on Lions and Bears, I think the Lions are in no man's land because of their quarterback. Like we talked about in episode 2 of the WebCast, where you are with Kirk. Goff and Kirk are not in the same sort of tier. I mean, Kirk is much better, but you're kind of in the same position where I don't think you're going to be bottom of the barrel with Goff. So I don't think you can go get the best quarterback in the draft, but you're not going to make the playoffs with him either. I know the Rams did, but what the Rams had around Goff was so much better than what the Lions have around. So I think the Lions are sort of in no man's land. We'll have to take the next step at quarterback. I think the Bears probably have their quarterback, but they really don't have anything else. So I think they're in line to be in competition for one of the top picks in the draft.
Yeah.
All right, let's go to the AFC. A quick preview of the better of the two conferences is the AFC. It's loaded. Couple of questions. Are we sure Buffalo is the clear-cut top team in the AFC / in the league? Because that's the hype they're getting. And I am not sure if I'm there.
That's a great question. Honestly, I walked into this conversation thinking the Bills is number 1, but now that you're mentioning it, I think they do have some holes on the roster for reasons that we don't necessarily have to get into on this podcast. I think they're going to struggle on special teams, which people do not care enough about. And having that type of transition at this point in the season, right before the season starts, having that type of adjustment on special teams is going to make an impact, whether you like it or not. That's going to have a tremendous impact on field position. And I think they're going to struggle out the gate on the ripple effects of that decision.
Yeah. I think Buffalo's good. I believe in them. They're one of the, they're a Super Bowl contender, and I would not argue that. I just think they're getting, there's not enough just noise out there about maybe it's Kansas City and Buffalo's second, or maybe it's Cincinnati and Buffalo. Like, no one is saying that. So I just think they're skating by a little too easily.
Yep.
Another thing I sort of kind of take exception to, a common narrative, is that all 4 teams in the AFC West could win the division. Yeah, I think all 4 teams in the AFC West are good, and all 4 could make the playoffs, but I don't think all 4 could really win the division. I think it's either Kansas City or the Chargers, really.
I completely agree. I think the Raiders, although they have a good roster, I don't see them going the distance.
Okay. The AFC North, to me, is very interesting. We'll be excited to see how that unfolds. Just with all the stuff going on in Cleveland, I think Baltimore is not getting enough credit, and I think people are like, oh, Cincinnati, that was cute, but they don't think they can really do it again. So I just think there's just a lot of interesting, to me, that's just like a bunch of wrapped Christmas presents that we get to unwrap this year, and I can't wait to see what they are.
Yep, because if we end the season and you had told me that any one of those 4 teams won the division, I would not be surprised.
Agreed. I agree with that. I would be more surprised if the Broncos won the West than if any team in the North won it.
Yep, completely agree. I think people are sleeping on the Steelers because they have a question mark at quarterback.
Yes, I agree with that. And I know we could, some might want to draw a line through the Browns because of what they got going on at quarterback, and then Watson gets back, but can you expect Watson to be that good? Right. But it's still Deshaun Watson.
Yep.
And I think the Browns are a team with a really good roster also. A lot like the Eagles, where it's like, yeah, you don't know about the quarterback, but the roster is really good.
Yep. And my boy, Kevin Stefanski's leading the charge.
Right. I'll never bet against Kevin. Last thing, AFC wise, before we get into division winners and wild cards, is Matt Ryan to the Colts is a big deal. And
dark horse to win the Super Bowl, in my opinion.
Yep. I think they're in the conversation. Okay. Division winners. I will go with the Bills, Bengals, Colts, and Chiefs in the West.
I think the only one that I would question you on, and I don't know if I'd even really question it, would be the Chiefs. I think if anyone's going to beat the Chiefs, it's the Chargers,
Okay.
because the Chargers have a stacked lineup. They arguably have the best roster in the NFL. I mean, that's debatable, but at least in my opinion, they're a stacked team. I'm a big fan of Brandon Staley. He's very aggressive. I think that'll pay off in this current modern NFL. So I think if anyone's unseating the Chiefs, it's the Chargers.
Chase.
I'm looking more at the north there. I like the Bengals. I think Joe Burrow is a great player. I think there's going to be, I know they didn't win the Super Bowl, but I think there's going to be some kind of aspect of a Super Bowl hangover. Just kind of, I just don't know if they can do it again. But I do really, 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 really like the Ravens this year.
Yeah.
There's a lot of controversy about Lamar Jackson. I think Lamar Jackson's great. He's got Mark Andrews. He's got Rashad Bateman. He's got a couple guys he can throw to now. I don't know. I think the Ravens could be really good this year.
I like them too, and I had Lamar Jackson, I think, at 8 in my top 10 quarterbacks in the NFL. And he's remember I can't remember who was. Oh, it was Josh Allen who I had 4th, and I'm like, if I had to move him, I'd move him to 3 before I'd move him back to 5. And with Lamar, I'd move him up to 7 before I moved him back to 9. Like,
for sure.
You know, and you have that unique element of like, it's not like playing any other quarterback. You have to get ready for an offense that really no other team can really run like the Ravens can. So I like them, and I have them as a wild card team, Chase. So respect for the Ravens. I have the Titans as a wild card team and the Chargers as a wild card team. So Giles, I know you said you could maybe make an argument for them in the West. So maybe it's the Chiefs who are the wild card and the Chargers are as the division winner. But one of those two teams will win the division. The other will get in as a wild card. And we'll see what happens with the Broncos and Raiders. Both playoff worthy rosters with playoff worthy quarterbacks. The Raiders actually made the playoffs last year. Let's not forget that. Right. So if you're a Raiders person, you're just sitting here like, these morons don't even know what they're talking about. They actually made the playoffs last year, and they're saying the Chargers, who didn't make the playoffs, could win the division, and the Raiders couldn't. We see that. We know that. It'll be interesting to see how each team's division record in the AFC West too. Like, how do they beat each other up? Does one team sort of rise above the others? That'll be interesting to see out there. But the AFC is absolutely loaded. Doesn't mean that conference will win the Super Bowl. An NFC team that emerges may well be the favorite in the Super Bowl, but the competition is just a little thicker, I think, in the AFC.
Agreed.
All right, let's close the show out here with a little gambling talk. Gambling is not for everyone, but it is for some people, and it's certainly an element of football that you're going to see more and more. You're going to see more and more of it in pregame shows, and networks are going to incorporate it into their broadcasts. So we're going to talk about it a little bit here on the WebCast from time to time. Let's go through a couple of angles that I'm excited to watch all season, and I'll do my best to chart them, and we'll check in on them every few weeks. Okay, guys? Here's the first one. Teams who did not cover the spread last week and are playing a team that did cover the spread the week prior. So this is playing on the parity in the NFL, and the fact that the public sees a team that did well last week and then bets on them the next week, or the public sees a team that didn't do well last week, so they don't bet on them the next week. And then the value that you can attain by capitalizing on those two things coming together. There
we go. I like that.
All right.
Hopefully the Vikings are on the right side of that spread, literally and figuratively.
I hope so too. Yeah. Okay. Another one, and someone who I follow on TikTok, and I'll unveil him the next time we talk about this, and we'll see how this angle does for him the first couple of weeks. But when a team is favored, let's say like Green Bay is favored by 1.5, against the Vikings, the debate you always have is, oh man, I think Green Bay is going to win, but I don't know, like maybe I just take him on the money line instead of laying the points. His theory is 65% of the time the team that wins also covers, so always lay the points, which you win more back on your bet if you give up the points as opposed to just picking them to win if it's a favorite. So he's saying always lay the points. And then he also says, if you think the underdog is going to win, the debate is always, am I going to take the points? It's like, I think they're going to win. They could win. Ooh, but you know, they're underdogs by 7 points. So I'll take the 7 points. His point is, don't do that. Just take them on the money line, because you might get them at 1.5 to 1 or 2 to 1. So I'm going to follow this too. Always lay the points if you're taking a favorite, and then never take the points if you're taking the dog. Just take the dog to win straight up.
All right.
All right. And then the last and final one is I got a little bit of contrarian in me from time to time. So I want to find on these point totals the highest point total of the week. So let's say it's the Rams and Chiefs and it's 53.5. And I want to play under that. So the highest of the week, and I want to play it under. And then the lowest point total in a week, let's say it's the Jags and the Bears, and it's 36.5. And then play the over on that.
Okay. Yeah.
All right. So those are the the three angles that we'll follow all season. Last thing we'll do here as we talk gambling is lines that I like in week 1. So I'm going to tell you what I like, and you tell me if you'd be on board with me or if you would bet against me on these. All right.
Yeah. Let's do it.
All right. Los Angeles Rams are hosting the Bills. This is the game that kicks off the season. Everyone on the Bills. Bets, total bets, Bills, and money all on the Bills. I would like the Rams to win the game. Rams on the money line, you get them at plus 115. And this is the contrarian in me, where it's like more times than not, the house wins. That's why those casinos are so big in Vegas.
Yep.
Right. So I like the Rams to win the game here. When you're filling out your pick sheet, guys, are you taking the Bills or the Rams?
You said it's at SoFi?
Yep.
Rams.
I'm picking Rams too, honestly.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So you guys
I think it'll be close, but yeah.
So do I. I think it's going to be a great game. I think it's going
Yep.
to be a great game, but I think the Rams will come out on fire. And mostly this is me going against the grain because the public is all over the Bills. And anytime I see that, I kind of tend to jump on the other side. All right.
Yep.
Here's one. I think Giles will be on board with me on this one. Eagles -4 at Lions. Love the Eagles to win this game, and I'm happy to lay the 4 points. I think they're going to win by more than 4.
I completely agree. Could not agree more. Eagles all the way.
100%. I'm very high on the Eagles.
I get it. They're on the road. It's week 1, and the Lions were on Hard Knocks, and they aren't up like the arrow is pointing up on them. But I can't see the game being a 4-point game or better for the Lions. I think the Eagles win fairly easily. Okay, another favorite on the road, another road favorite. Baltimore at the Jets, favored by 7. I'd lay the points there and take the Ravens to win by more than 7 at the Jets.
Honestly, I'm going to agree with you again. I think the Ravens got it. I think the Jets still have at least one more season before they're even remotely relevant again.
Okay.
Yep.
2 more to go. One's an upset special. The one that is not is another favorite. It's Denver -6.5 at Seattle. Russ Wilson opens the season at Seattle. Denver favored by 6.5. I think they win by 7 or more.
I agree.
Yeah.
I will never bet with a team with that has Drew Lock on their roster.
Tough. Yeah, that's a tough one. All right.
I'm sorry.
Yep. And it's a revenge game. Yeah. Russell Wilson, he's got it.
Yep. All right. Last one. Upset special. Jags at the Washington Commanders. I'll take the Jags. Plus 135. Doug Peterson, Trevor Lawrence get something going against Carson Wentz and the Commanders in week 1.
I think this is where we disagree.
Yep.
I think I go Commanders here.
You both like the Commanders over the Jags. All right. I got these written down. You guys are on board with me on all of them except the Commanders and Jags. So we'll see how that one unfolds. And we'll follow some of these angles and some of our predictions when it comes to gambling from time to time here on the WebCast 2.0. All right, guys. Any final word, Vikings Packers, before we wrap this thing up?
No, let's go chase the championship.
That's right.
Yes, sir.
That chase in 2022 begins for the Minnesota Vikings in earnest this week as they welcome the Green Bay Packers to US Bank Stadium. Remember, everyone, that game is 3:25, not noon. Week 1, Vikings Packers, 3:25 p.m. Central Time. You can catch the game on Fox. And just as importantly, you can catch reaction and analysis of the game right here on the WebCast 2.0 almost immediately following the game. We'll take some time to collect our thoughts, but we'll be back at you with episode 4 of the WebCast 2.0 the Monday after Vikings Packers. So make sure you stay tuned for that. You can find the WebCast 2.0 wherever you find all of your favorite podcasts: Spotify, Google Play, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music. Anywhere you find podcasts, you can find the WebCast 2.0. You found us for this episode, and we hope you find me, Giles, and executive producer Chase for many more episodes to come. You can also follow us on YouTube, where you can get a visual version of the WobCast 2.0 as well. As always, reach out to me, interact with me and us on Twitter. I'm at Wobby on Twitter. You can also email us at therealwobcast@gmail.com. Send us content ideas for segments. Send us your predictions. Send us your thoughts, something we said you disagreed with, a question you have about the team. Whatever it might be, we encourage you to email us or tweet us so we can incorporate it into the show. On behalf of my co-host Giles and executive producer Chase, this is Wobby signing off for now. Skol Vikings.